Episode 7 of The Last of Us is here. I just wrapped my watch. We're getting ready to dive into my review and thoughts, overview, etc. Remember, I don't do spoiler free. So if this is your first time tuning in and you've never actually watched one of my episodes, that's your warning because it's going to be spoiler full. I'm going to be reading through my show notes here and going through every single thing. So if you don't want it spoiled, now's the time to walk away. But I can say it was a super cool episode. A lot of backstory for Ellie's character, including the character Riley, which was mentioned at the beginning of the show, and who actually has a playable section, which I've actually never played through in the game itself. It was like a DLC that was added to things later on. But in any case, spoiler alert, you've been warned. We're going to get into it. If you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back again. If you're new and you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, all those good things. We'll talk more at the end about ways you can support. But in the meantime, I've got my coffee, cup number 3, and we're going to dive into my show notes here. So 3, 2, 1, last warning, and go. So we pick up where we left off, which is this abandoned snowy town, and we see a blood-stained path leading up to a house, and we enter into Ellie trying to bandage up Joel because he got screwed up at the end of the last episode. And he's like, you go to Tommy, and he shoves her off with every last ounce of his remaining strength because he doesn't, he's not going to make it. So he's like, you need to get out of here. And she's like all sorts of freaking out about, leaving and everything else. And first 60 seconds of this show, and I was already crying because I was like, no, this is so emotional. And I know what's coming. So, not to say anything for the people who haven't played the video game yet, but even knowing what I know, this was a super emotional scene. And now we get into flashback, and this is a section I'd never played this DLC. I can't even tell you what it's called off the top of my head. It might be called Left Behind. I've seen it on the menu every time I load up The Last of Us to play through recently on my remastered playthrough. I've seen it up there um, as a playable thing. I've never played it, so. But I guess if you remember back in episode 1, Marlene mentioned something about Riley, and that's this backstory that we get. This is the Ellie and Riley backstory. And much like Bill and Frank, this is a character building episode which helps us dive into who Ellie is as a character while also celebrating the lesbian relationship here, which for some people is immediately going to be, oh my God, The Last of Us is so woke. It These characters were always written this way. It blows my mind when people think that this is just something invented for the show. Um, but Ellie has a beautiful budding relationship with Riley, who's her best friend and who she's grown up with. And it's really allowed to flourish here in a really good. I love the storytelling here, especially as we get to the end, because we know that it doesn't have a happy ending. And I cried multiple times in this episode, kind of like I did with the Bill and Frank episode. Anyway, so Ellie's in a gym, running laps in a gym with other kids. He's got a Walkman on. This mean kid comes by, rips it off. Your friend isn't here to protect you anymore. And then Ellie's like, you're right, she's not. And then beats her up and gets sent to Captain Kwong's office. And it turns out Kwong is, a Fedra official who acts as like the principal of the school, but it's not. And she's just like, she's very rebellious. Says, just put me in the hole again. And he's like, it doesn't work. I've already tried that 3 times already. And he gives her the lay of the land, and basically says, look, you know, Fedra's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's what keeps everybody from killing each other, and it keeps humanity surviving. And it's not the greatest of things, but you only have 2 choices here. You can either be a grunt and you're going to get shit jobs and you'll be reporting to the bullies like that chick who took your Walkman, or you can become an officer and at least you'll be, warm in the winter, cool in the summer. You won't have to take shit jobs. You get to stay safe in the city. You'll always be fed. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but he gets it. It's there needs to be structure, even if it's not a great structure. And she's like, fine, whatever. So she goes back to her room. She's reading ratty comics, and we see this other bed in her room, and she's staring at it. Lights out. She wakes up, at 2 a.m. And to someone shaking her in bed, and it's Riley. And here we have a character that I've never met before, although I know who she is. And apparently she's been missing about 3 weeks at this point, and everyone thought she was dead. But she has come back, and she reveals to Ellie that she's joined the Fireflies while she was away. Has her pendant and everything. And Ellie's, freaking out, like, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Riley wants to go out and have the night of their lives, and after that, I'll tell you everything. And, I the build up to why they go to the mall is really well done because when it finally unfolds at the end of the mall sequence, it all makes sense. But as I was watching it, I was marveling at like the level of, we know that she's got an agenda. We know that um, that she's bringing Ellie here for a reason, and it's revealed slowly over the course of the episode. It's very well done. It's very well done. But as they're sneaking out and breaking quarantine, they're having banter about beating other kids up, but also about her wanting to join the Fireflies, Riley, and picking your battles. And it's youth that are trying to find wisdom. And I can see some of myself here back when I was 15, 16, 17, trying to figure shit out. You think you know some of it, and maybe you do. Maybe you're on the right track, but it's not easy. But they're having to grow up in a world where you have to mature a lot. I can resonate, even though I didn't grow up in an apocalyptic setting, because I've been on my own since I was 15, and so I very quickly had to learn how to pay the bills and work full time and the life of an adult at a very young age. And you have to mature because the world will eat you up and spit you out if you don't. So it was a very good episode for me to watch this happening. The writing was very top quality here. They get upstairs in a building. They find this guy in a hallway. He's dead, but he wasn't here yesterday. And he left behind his massive bottle of whiskey and a half a bag of pills. And it's meant to showcase that he knew what he was doing, and it's foreshadowing what comes later in the episode. Because as they're watching this guy, they take his whiskey and then they're joking about the pills, and like he knew what he was doing. And so it's he found his own way. Then we get the backstory here about Riley sneaking out and meeting Marlene one night while Ellie was in the hole. And they have a really great discourse about the pros and cons of Fedra versus the Fireflies, and the ultimate realization, which is what Joel has said in a previous episode, that neither group is the good guys, especially for those of us who have played the game and we see later on what the Fireflies can become, even given all their good intentions, in a world where any group in power will eventually have to resort to Fedra like fascism to maintain order and keep people alive. So it's an interesting way of looking at how there's not really any such thing as good and evil. It's just which variations are you willing to live with? Because no matter where you go, you're going to find good and evil, and you're going to find life and complications. We find the mall, lights are on, and they flip the lights on, and it's time to explore the four wonders of the mall as Riley has apparently planned all this out. And we get these episodes where we see these emotional connections between the two kids where they keep getting close to each other, and it's being explored from the perspective of two young, you know, kids who are falling in love and have feelings and are expressing those in awkward ways, as all kids do. Um, I very much remember my first kiss, and it was not, it was a very awkward affair, as it is in this episode. So it's just a buildup over the course of them going through this, of they having this, heart to heart on the carousel, drinking whiskey. Riley lays it all out about how Kwong gave her her first assignment right before she went AWOL. She turned 17, and he gave her sewer detail, which means she's going to be standing guard while people shovel shit. And that's when she realized that she was going to be a grunt her whole life if she stayed with Feather. And she said, fuck this. I'm going to firefly my way out of here. And the only reason she came back was because of her connection with Ellie. They then do this picture scene in the old picture booth. They're getting really close to each other, even though the pictures are all faded. It doesn't matter because they're happy. They're in the moment. They're enjoying this time together. Then they go to the video game arcade. They're playing Mortal Kombat. And in the midst of all of this, we see the infected dude on the wall starting to wake up because he's hearing all the noise and the tendrils and everything. And it's like, oh man. Um, as they're having some alone time in the mall in this secret area that Riley has taken them to, Ellie finds some pipe bombs and realizes that Riley didn't actually find this place. She was posted here. And they have this big blowout. Riley wanted this to be a special night, and because turns out she's leaving tomorrow. It's her last night in Boston, and she wanted to have this last night with her friend who she has feelings for. And they have a blowout, but eventually they end up, making up, and she gets the pun book from Riley, which she's still carrying and is using with Joel. Um, and they have this moment of reflection as they're sitting here about how the Fireflies might not be what they claim, but they chose me. They want me, and that's something Fedra never gave me. So they make up, and there's an incredible level of maturity in this episode here of them coming to terms with life. They start dancing, and they have another moment where they're almost ready to kiss, and then Ellie literally goes, "Don't go," and kisses her very quickly. And Riley is like, "Okay." And then this is ah, as they have this tender moment, and Riley says, "Yes, I'll stay," basically. Here comes the infected, and we have the sequence where they both get bit, and I'm just like, now I'm crying again because I know what's coming, and it's just this horrible moment here, and now we start flashing back and forth where it's between the mall scene and then she's with Joel, and she's upstairs trying to, what am I gonna do about Joel? And she's like, I'm gonna save Joel. I can't let another relationship go to waste in my life. And so she's running upstairs looking for bandages, looking for sutures, looking for anything she can find. And then it flashes back to the mall, and it's the two of them realizing, they've both been bit, and it's like Riley says, doesn't matter if it's 2 minutes or 2 days. I don't want to give that up. We're not going to give that up. We're going to enjoy every last minute we have and lose our minds together. And now you know, as I'm watching this, I was just crying even more, and then she's back and she's holding Joel's hand, and he grips it tight, thanking her silently. And I'm like, I was literally weeping as she opens him up and starts to dress his wounds. And I was just like, I literally walked out of the office and Chris was changing the water for the chickens, and she was laughing because I was like, tears are coming down my face. She's Chris makes fun of me when I cry when I watch TV, but I cry at almost everything I watch on TV. Chris makes fun of me. It's a lot of fun watching. So I'm getting red in the eyes again because it's just really good. It was a really good episode. Really sad, really sad episode, and but ultimately it helps build Ellie's character um, up, not just for what's in this season, and the relationship that she has with Joel, and how this is the moment that transcends for them and it turns them into the father and son, because she's finally going to feel the bond for him and he's going to feel the bond for her. But this also sets up her relationship in the second game, and also what that relationship is going to be like in the show. Because obviously, you know, that's a very powerful thing, and that's what ultimately motivates her throughout the entirety of that second game is the combination of needing to, you know, well, I don't want to spoil the second thing, but we'll talk about that later. Great episode, 10 out of 10 for me. Emotionally, no punches pulled. Um, very, very satisfied with the character building in this one. Cannot wait for the last couple of episodes. Um, So yeah, I got to go away from this and watch it with Chris now, and see what she says. And she'll laugh at me because I'll probably cry again. But in the meantime, yeah, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I'll be doing more, and I'm still continuing to play through. Actually, my playthrough actually got to. I am. Yes, I think I know where the next episode is going to go because of where Joel and Ellie are. So I just met the group that they're gonna meet in the next episode, but I haven't gotten ahead of the episode yet. So I need to try to play enough to get ahead of where I think the next episode is going. Because there's only two major sections left for the show to explore. One is obviously the finale, which is the Fireflies and the university and everything that happens there. And then right before that is what happens while Joel is wounded, and that sequence of events and what happens there, which is probably going to be next week's episode. And it's probably going to be a super dark. Episode 8 is probably not going to be a fun episode for anybody. Um, but what a penultimate episode it's going to be. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, support if you can, super chats and stickers on live streams and premieres, super thanks on uploaded videos. Don't forget the memberships here on YouTube, memberships over the Patreon page. There's a Discord. All the links are down there. I'll see everybody in the next episode. Until then, stay safe, happy watching, and don't get bit.